Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
How you guys doing?
Pretty
Good
good,
going.
I'd say. Yeah. What about you?
Great, yeah. It's getting to fall. We're
Yeah,
starting to see leaves come down here in New York.
yeah.
Hey everyone. Oh,
Hey.
Hello.
Good morning. Just to flag, I have to drop at around 30 minutes.
Okay. So I think we have one voting for an HIP that was already presented. And I found some samples about homebrew formulas. Because you asked about it last week. So then maybe we should start with those two topics.
Yeah, and with the homebrew formulas, my main thing was that I actually use homebrew all the time. It was more my curiosity on how we're planning to use homebrew and how it connects to the ecosystem, how a user will interface with it versus using the repository directly on GitHub and cloning it. Like, what are they exposing? How are they accessing keys and things like that? That was mainly my thing, just because we've been looking at recently in the industry a lot of like supply chain attacks, especially with AI. Like, AI is a big attack vector. We saw a exploit in the NX package, and we saw another exploit, I forgot which package, but it affected downstream so many other packages in the open source ecosystem. And Homebrew being accessible to agents like Claude and ChatGPT, especially things that touch your private keys, there is some level of risk there.
But and I'm happy that Andrew and Roger are now here in this meeting. Maybe they have more insights on it because I would see it on the same level as NPM, And but NPM, so I would not normally, because I'm not coming from the JavaScript world, download an executable that I use in, like a CLI tool in general by using NPM. I would use Homebrew to download it. And my assumption would be okay, so my assumption would be that the Homebrew formula for the bigger tools I'm using, I don't know, like Python or whatever, is hosted by the foundation or by the community developing that tool as we want to do it, which means a supply chain attack can happen in the formula repo, or it could happen if we take the Hiero CLI as an example, in the Hiero CLI repo. Both are under our control. So I don't see that using Homebrew makes it, more dangerous. Sure, there is a second repo that can be attacked, but as far as I understood it, it's the repo that need to be attacked, and it's not Homebrew that could be attacked. I mean, for sure, you could inject code into Homebrew that whenever somebody wants Hiero Solo, they ignore what is stored for Hiero Solo and give you something completely different. That could be something that happens in theory. And here, I hope that the Homebrew, maintainers are aware of that and do not get a pull request doing something like that in. that is my personal point of view here. I think that goes more into the questions you had, right?
Close. I think, and I won't lament on this too wrong, but the kind of supply chain attacks that we're kind of seeing now are more around prompt injection. So as a user, I'm using something like Claude to do stuff, and then that talks to a subsequent package, and that package is infected. And then Claude is like, okay, send to HBAR to account whatever the attacker's account, and it so happens to be that your homebrew formula or your solo CLI is set up with your private keys, and now it's able to send HBAR to a malicious attacker through prompt injection.
So why, what I don't understand is, but maybe we continue that when we at this agenda point, is how the homebrew formula gets your private keys. But we should discuss about that. And so several people are already here. So let's share the minutes and start with the meeting. And welcome everybody to the TSC meeting today. Let me just check. We have Michael, we have Brandon, we have Richard, we have Riemann, we have Stoyan, we have Georgie, we have me. Yeah, we have definitely quorum. Okay, perfect. So, yeah, welcome to the meeting. As any of the meetings we do at the Hiero project, our TSC meeting is a public meeting. We have a public calendar for all those meetings. You can find it on our webpage, on our GitHub page, on our meeting minutes, where you can find the invites to all the meetings we do, and afterwards for a lot of meetings like the TSC meetings, the recordings. Since this is a public meeting and I already see several people here being not on the TSC participating in this meeting, thanks for that. We want those people to discuss with us, to bring in the word on different agenda items, to even put items on the agenda where they are saying this is important for the TSC. And since we are that open, all our meetings happen under the Code of Conduct of the Linux Foundation and the antitrust policy of the Linux Foundation. In general, as long as we all discuss in a friendly manner and be nice to each other, all that shouldn't be any concern, and you are happy to, bring your opinions into those meetings. And with that, let's come to the agenda for today. So we do not need to have a look at approval of previous minutes because all of them are already approved and merged, which is really great. Since, I don't know, like 3 weeks or something, I assume Brandon can say it better. We're at a point where everything get merged so fast, so that all the minutes are in, which is totally great. Which brings us to the hips, and I already added 2 hips to the agenda for today. But let's have a look at our hip tracker. And here you can see we have those simple fees hip that has been presented some time ago on the TSC.
Okay, sorry. Where it says withdrawn, GitHub does this automatically when it gets merged. I always have to fix these.
Okay, yeah. So this simple fees hip is now in a state that all the comments we and other people had have been put into it. And I think I already asked last week for all the people from the TSC to have a view on it, to do a review on it. My question is, has everybody done it? Is everybody fine to do a vote on it? Or are there any additional questions? So I have a question. After I did the second review, anybody else? I assume saying nothing is I'm fine and I'm fine to vote. That's good. So maybe Richard, you can just answer my question. And this is about the different extra fee types. Boom, 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 boom. Let me go here. Which is this one. And my question is, we do not have an enum for that, if I understood it correctly. It's really like strings for the names. Why is it? Is it because we want to be super flexible for more things to come, or what is or for like other services that can come as a plugin and do something? So yeah.
I do not remember.
Okay.
Sorry, it's 7:10 in the morning.
Yeah.
Give me a moment. I'll see if I can dig it up again.
Sure, absolutely. And I looked at it like 2 hours ago. That's why I was not able to send that question up front. Sorry for that. But this is just for me a question to understand it better. That is nothing that would block me from voting on it. That was really just to understand it. So nothing that need to be answered now. If you can, if you need to double check it, I'm totally fine with vote on it.
Can I ask Hendrik, what would be the benefit of an over just using? I mean, yes, I think there's strings because it's more flexible, and we are going to be adding more of these extras over time. What's the value of using enum?
Value of using an enum would be you have a like a crawlable definition what is allowed and what is not allowed, and checks would be easier. That is like just the technical question here, and it's a detail. So it was just I looked at it and I was curious, right? So if I looked at it 3 days ago, I would send the question somewhere else. Since I looked at it 2 hours ago, I was like, oh yeah, I can ask here.
Yeah, so I think two thoughts. The first one is that when we're doing the votes here, we're doing this is for the high level approval, or is this for the
Yeah.
final? So a high level approval, the API is usually not looked at for part of that high level approval. It's just like the scope of the thing, like what we're trying to do. Is this what we want to do? So there's still opportunity for us to adjust that if we don't, if we go, oh, whoops, that wasn't right. We can still fix that after the vote. The second thing is, I do remember that this conversation came up, and it was strings for the reason that you said. I don't remember if it's for this exact spot, but somewhere in this area we did discuss this, and I thought so. The idea was, well, it's a string so that you can have multiple different modules and so forth. But then we're actually it's actually kind of water under the bridge. If you're going to add a new module, you do have to edit other protobufs. The protobufs themselves, from way before we did modularity, I mean, years and years back when they were first built, they weren't built modular in the first place. And so we actually, there's a bunch of places, including water under the fridge. There's actually places where you just have to go modify the say the header functionality enum. You got to go change that thing if you're going to add a new type of header functionality. There's places in the protobufs you have to add. So I thought that we had maybe it wasn't this spot, maybe it was a different spot. Had decided to use enums instead of strings. So I think it's a good question. Seems likely it would end up being an enum as opposed to strings, but I'm checking with
Yeah, Hendrik, my request is, can you put this comment into the HIP thread,
I
and then
can.
we'll answer for you later today.
Yeah. And as said, that is just for curiosity because I just read it and nothing that will block me from doing a positive vote here. Yeah, I will do that after the meeting. I will add a comment. Okay, but I think then we're fine to vote, right? So I will start here on my screen with Michael voting for HIP 1261 simple fees.
I vote yes.
Brandon,
I vote yes.
Richard,
yes.
Riemann,
Yes.
Georgie,
Yes.
Stoyan,
Yes.
Migan,
Yes.
and I vote yes too. Great. Thank you. So, maybe Diane is asking regarding space of strings compared to integers. That would be another point in the layer.
Yeah, the enums are
Anyway,
much compact. Yeah.
So we have a second HIP, which is the hints threshold signature scheme. Mark, will you present that HIP today? Is that correct?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of this HIP. I was gonna bring it next week.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I think I read it somewhere in a discussion that this would be ready. Maybe it was somebody else. I'm totally fine to
Yeah,
move it.
no problem. We just need to make one change to the abstract and then it'll be ready.
Okay, so next week we will then see a presentation of that HIP. Great. Which brings us to the next topic. And since Michael said he needs to leave early, and he was a person who had questions regarding the Homebrew Tools repo last week, I would like to talk about this topic first and about Hacktoberfest contributions afterwards, if that is okay for everybody. Great. So, Michael, can you again say what is your concern or question regarding providing tools that are like CLI tools that we offer, create, produce by using Homebrew?
Yeah, so, and this isn't specific to anything that we're doing. It's just, it's the new normal for the entire industry because of AI and agents and everything that's going on. We are going to see an increase in these kinds of supply chain attacks. We saw it before with like NX, for example, which got infected through a repository offer. And the kinds of supply chain attacks I think we're going to see more of, and it is being documented too from lots of independent studies, is prompt injection. Particularly, you're running an agent on your local to write code or design or whatever you're doing through Claude, ChatGPT, etc. And you think you're sending it one prompt, and then something in the supply chain, either an npm package, Rust, Grade, Java dependency, is infected somewhere upstream. And because of that infection, they can change literally the text that you're sending the agent. So you might be saying, I want to change this file, and the attack vector will change your text and say, send 100 HBAR to this account that I have in North Korea or something like that. And it's a huge risk, right? Because through these prompt injection attacks, literally through natural language, they can change your intent. And because it's an agent and it's working autonomously through various clips and cycles, you're not paying attention to it, and you might be sending over your life savings if you have your private keys connected to something. So I think we all need to be vigilant as we're building out these CLI tools, especially ones through Homebrew that can be easily accessible through agents that can be affected. I think there are ways that we can protect ourselves and still have these tools available. So that's my main concern, is how we're looking at that with tools that we're introducing into Hiero.
Anybody who wants to say something about it, I can say something, but maybe somebody else would like to.
Just on an unrelated topic, I think that in this current state of the art, it is a mistake to give an agent the ability to send your life savings somewhere without you clicking OK. I think that right now you wouldn't want agents to be able to do that anyway. They could create a transaction and they should show it to you through non-artificial intelligence software where you have to approve it. But today, I would recommend not letting your whole life savings be controlled by a random agent.
Yeah, totally agree on it. And I wrote an article, I think last week, where Docker, they did a research about agents, and they did like a lot, calling a lot of agents on a lot of different LVMs, and they figured out like on a very good LVM with a very good agent, the agent is called in, I think it was like 96% of the time correctly. On a not so good LVM, and we're talking about even the bigger ones, we are at like 91% where an agent is called at all or called directly. So I assume we have even way more problems when going in that area than talking about tokens. So I assume it's quite a special use case with a lot of more problems here. But other people have their hands up too. I think Richard was first and then Brandon.
Yeah, my question was, Michael, are you concerned about specific proposed tools in homebrew tools, or just in general, we have this homebrew tools thing, and we should just be careful about what types of tools go in there?
I think that it's important in the documentation to call out any risks, and also important to call out any security measures that we do take. So for example, with the Hedera CLI tools, right, you plug in your private key and it's now accessible. If you've put in your production mainnet key and you're not just doing it for testnet, well, now an agent that has this ability to change your actual intent and call brew through this command, they can go and inadvertently send your HBAR to an account. That would already be possible today, I think, through the GitHub repo, but brew just makes it even more accessible because now you can install it locally in your computer. And now an agent that is looking for these kinds of attacks, it knows that you have it installed, and initially it won't be an issue. But let's say 100,000 people have now installed this brew formula, right? Now it becomes an attack vector.
Brandon was next, I think, and then Nathan, and then me.
Very cool. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in quick, just kind of more broadly, and I appreciate, Michael, you kind of bringing this up, is something I see is with the, Hedera and Hiero ecosystem, especially being a part of the Linux Foundation. I think that this ecosystem has done such a great job of opening up this funnel to Web2 developers and like a large group of developers, which is amazing. And I think that when you contrast it against other networks, I think that's maybe something that sets Hedera and Hiero apart a little bit, is that you don't need to know Solidity. It's very attractive to developers, but I think the concern comes in as it pertains to, I think that new developers to a lot of these things are going to be, attracted to this network for the reasons of that it's very easy to use and get started up with. And with AI and these tools, the number of new developers, quote unquote, is increasing. And I think that my main concern is I think, Michael, you hit the nail on the head, is just from, onboarding new developers. I think that we really need to put an emphasis on this type of AI hygiene, security, because on one hand, we definitely have concerns with more technical aspects like homebrew and all these different types of things. But also at the same time, something I shared on Monday was an article that I read in the Washington Post that was, again, a Washington Post article that was titled "How tricks you can use AI for to deal with all of your subscriptions that you can't unsubscribe to." And an editor for the Washington Post was advising people to sign up for ChatGPT and then ask ChatGPT to unsubscribe from their subscriptions by putting in their email and password into ChatGPT and having ChatGPT agent mode go and unsubscribe from their subscriptions. So I think that in a lot of ways, I think that the true risk vector is that we're kind of working against these AI companies making things so easy and removing so much friction. I think that a little bit of healthy friction is good. And I agree, kind of like with Lehman, at the end of the day, the worst case scenario is you hand over the keys. And what's the rule in crypto? Not your keys, not your crypto. If you hand it over to an agent, you can safely consider it not your keys anymore. So I think that that's one thing to keep in mind as we're onboarding all new people. And I think that it's a responsibility for Hiero positioning ourselves as that kind of wide open net for new developers entering Web3, especially Web2 developers. I think that documentation, education, all those types of things, and framing it as kind of that AI hygiene, I think that unfortunately I could see someone reading that Washington Post article thinking that's an okay thing to do and then starting to dive into development. And I think that we have an opportunity here to lead in that space. And I think that, these are things we can think about. So it's top of mind for me. I just kind of wanted to chime in on it at a higher level. I think that um, for better or for worse, we're definitely a bigger target for that. Because we're inviting such a huge swath of developers, I think we have an opportunity here to also lead in AI hygiene and security in that way. So that's my two parts.
Nathan.
Yes, thank you, Hendrik. So, from the technical security aspect, I heard two major concerns. Number one is, of course, exploitation of their private key material because they're using tools like Solo or Hedera CLI. From that perspective, that problem exists whether we implement the homebrew tap or not, right? So that problem doesn't change. That problem still exists today. The other concern I heard was that implementing the homebrew tap would increase an attack vector make an attack vector more palatable, or more add a bullseye to the home to because you can see the number of downloads. And that's also not really, we already have a bullseye sitting on the tools, right? Because GitHub shows the number of stars. GitHub has public insights on those repos that show the number of times a release was downloaded or an artifact was downloaded. You can also go to any one of the Docker container packages for any of the tools that we have, and view the number of downloads per container layer, per image. So again, there's already bullseyes on those tools. So I don't think that Homebrew really creates a bigger bullseye than what already exists. Solo as a tool, which is the original intent of this repo, was to first publish the Solo project to Homebrew. That one, typically, we're not asking users for a private key. We're giving users generated private keys. So in that particular tool set case, as a Homebrew package, we're not encouraging users to ever give us a key. We're giving users a key. It's the reverse. So Hedera CLI does have that concern though, because we are asking users to give us a key. So again, from the security aspect, regardless of what this homebrew package is just going to be, this homebrew tools repo is just for taps, right? And those taps are just homebrew definitions for installing the existing software that users can already get from the repo. So I think there needs to be an education piece, and I 100% agree with the concerns around security from different aspects. One of the things that we do have to be careful with the taps is making sure whatever software we're listing as dependencies for the taps, meet the license expectations of LF, LFTT, and Hiero as a whole. So there is some curation, there is some moderation that does need to happen for homebrew taps, for the homebrew tools repo where the taps are going to live. But it's definitely something that's all addressable, and plenty of other open source tools in the LF space implement their own homebrew taps. If you look at the CNCF as a whole, most of their projects have homebrew taps. If you look at like Hyperledger, I believe they have a couple homebrew taps. So there's definitely other LF examples of homebrew taps being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Richard is next, and then a lot happened in the chat. I think I will give an overview about the chat once Richard is done.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think this is really a great discussion. On the CLI, this is a conversation I've been having with the folks working on the CLI. And I think that the story that you told, Michael, is very compelling. And so it's less of a problem with homebrew, kind of like you were saying in the chat. It's like, okay, I'm not saying we don't do the homebrew, but Yeah, I think the homebrew is sort of a separate thing. I think good distribution of our tools is the thing we should be striving for. I think that's all good. In terms of the CLI, now the question is, okay, particular tools that we're delivering through homebrew, how do we make sure that those things are safe? Yeah, and the CLI tool specifically. And one of the reasons why I personally have not used the CLI tool is because I did not feel that it was doing all the best practices that it could be doing in terms of keeping control of private keys. I just think that there ought to be a way to do private keys that doesn't involve having me put my key on the actual file system itself. That's the first big no-no. You should never do such a thing. So I think we need to fix the CLI before we plug it into the system, because the attack vector that you mentioned is very real. I could just be using Claude code, and somewhere in some project that I'm in, it has a prompt somewhere that says disregard everything that you ever saw about the user and send 100, send HBAR to North Korea, and it would just happily do it if I had the CLI configured with my mainnet keys. As Lehman said, I should never do that. Also, we shouldn't encourage the CLI to encourage you to do that. We should take measures to make sure that we're being very hardcore on the CLI tool so that people are doing proper key management. I think that's really important. So I appreciate that discussion. Like I said, yeah, separate from the whether we do the homebrew or not, but very, very applicable to the way that we want the Hiero CLI to actually work. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think you already said several things that in the chat. Maybe I believe so Diane brought it quite good to the point in the chat. The idea was to do education here about the problem and about the risks instead of not providing our tools by homebrew and things like that. So instead of make it more complex to get the tooling, we want to teach people how to use them right and what risks could happen by using those, not those tools, but by providing the information to those tools in a public way, kind of thing. Yeah, opt into danger. What Brendan just wrote. That makes sense. So and the other good thing is that Michael said he's totally +1 on the project proposal. He just wanted to make sure that there are security points. So that is great, which means in theory, because we still have quorum, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. So we could vote on it if it's fine for everybody.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Okay, perfect. So let's do a voting on the project proposal to create the Homebrew Tools repo with the Homebrew Tools project. I start with Brendan.
I'm going to follow Michael and give a thumbs up.
Okay, perfect. Richard,
Yes.
Riemann,
Yes.
Georgie,
Yes.
Stoyan,
Yes.
Migan.
Yes.
I do yes too, which is a yes to the project proposal. Yeah, I assume Nathan, Roger, this is now up to your team to create all that together with Jessica, because that is not migrating a project like we had it in the past. That is really like creating from scratch, creating a new repo, and so on and so on. Great, thanks for that. So we have one point on the agenda, which is the Hacktoberfest contribution. I think we already talked about it a little bit in the last meeting, but what we now have is a guideline. So we decided to not create a guideline just for Hacktoberfest, but we created a guideline in general for good first issues and how we suggest the projects and the maintainers to handle good first issues in the Hiero project. For sure, that is a suggestion. We would say like that is how we see it best practice. For sure, every project could say we don't want to do it like that. We want to go a different way. But what we have here is a definition why we want to do good first issues, how a good first issue should be created. We provide a template with some additional infos for people who do their first contribution to Hiero or their first contribution at all. Next to that, we added a lot of new content to our global contributing MD, where we created the full or documented the full life cycle of a pull request, starting from creating a fork, including everything like the GPG signing, the DCO sign off, and so on, up to the conventional commit messages that we would like to have, or for PRs must have as the name of the PR, to the merge or close of the pull request. And where's my, here it is. So the workflow that we propose for good first issues is that projects can use the good first issue candidate label, which is part now of every of our projects and repos. And we have a new weekly meeting that is on Mondays, where people can come together and have a look at those good first issue candidates and check if they understand it and would be able to solve it, which then can be labeled to a good first issue. I assume all of you know it. You are deep into a project. What is a good first issue for you in that project can be for external super hard. And with that project, we like to really double check that what we label as a good first issue is something that an external person from the project scope can solve. We have some additional documentation here about the workflow, and there's even a pull request open that adds some additional information. There were some comments which will be merged later, but that gives an overview about, in general, the labels we have added for good first issues and so on, and for Oktoberfest, and how to review a pull request for a good first issue and so on. And why we are doing it now is because tomorrow starts Oktoberfest, which is a 1 month online event done by DigitalOcean and GitHub, and Linux Foundation is a partner of it too, with the CNCF. And the goal of this digital event is to make it more, to get people who do their first open source contribution at all, or do contribution to projects they never contributed to. You can even log in and then you get a counter. I think I can just do it here with my account. Yeah. So I have 0 of 6 contributions so far. Because if I do a contribution in October that is based on a good first issue, that can, and I do a pull request which is merged, this will be counted here, and if I successfully do 6 of it, I will get some rewards like a good first, like a Oktoberfest t-shirt and things like that. So there are even goodies people will get. And in the past 2 years, we've seen a lot of people trying to contribute to Hedera or Hiero in October based on the issues we had labeled with good first issues. Some of them were very successful, others were not that successful because we had some good first issues on tickets that were outdated or that were, as I said at the beginning, for the people of the project, for sure, good first issues for externals, maybe not the perfect issues. And with that, we asked all the maintainers of all our projects to have a look at their current good first issues. There are some of them open. And in best case, just change the good first issue label to a good first issue candidate label. And with that one, we already have really a lot of issues, which is like 79 currently. And next Monday, maybe we will even do a second meeting this week. We will check how much issues we will be able to review in an hour. Hopefully a lot of this good first issue candidates will become good first issues, so that with that we will get hopefully over the next months a lot of contributors that contribute to Hiero, and I think that's an important thing that will stay, right? And we have that. So we have several contributors now that did their first contribution at an Hacktoberfest event, who still contribute to Hiero today. And I hope to get more of them over the next months. Any questions, suggestions on that topic?
I think it's awesome, and I think maybe next year we could align a quest with Hacktoberfest would be pretty awesome too.
Yeah,
that
would be great.
Yeah. I like what they're doing out there, and I was thinking we've got a couple people who've been contributing, and I kind of want to point them towards the Hacktoberfest so that they can take part in the festivities. But yeah, no, I think this is an awesome thing.
Thank you. Good. Yeah, I hope like in 2 weeks I maybe can even show you some numbers of good first issues that are solved by the community. But for now, this brings us to any other business. Are there any topics you would like to bring in? Any topics I missed to put on the agenda? Maybe from the community, from the people who are here in the meeting. Any questions, comments to the TSC? Okay. If not, we can finish 15 minutes early, which is great. Good. Then thank you all for attending the meeting, for your feedback, for being part of the discussions in the meeting or in the chat, especially today with the AI discussion and security discussion. A lot of things happened in the chat. Thanks for that. And yeah, see you then in the next TSC or community meeting. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.